Who are we talking about? The who's who. Basically, the Jeffrey Epstein flight log of the occult world. Newton. Everybody knows him. Mathematics, physics, astronomer, author. Masonic Lodge in Edinburgh. Desaguirres, the French philosopher, inventor, the key figure early in the development of Freemasonry in England. Bacon, statesman, scientist, philosopher, Rosicrucian. Arbuthnot, the Scottish physician, mathematician, and writer, the member of the Scribblers Club, and his ties to Freemasonry. Moray, the Scottish soldier and statesman, the natural philosopher, a founding member of the Royal Society. Here's a link to the Royal Society. We're going to put this up on the screen real quick. Ashmole, who was the English antiquary, the politician and the founder and the member of the Royal Society. Wren, who's the English architect and mathematician and astronomer of the Royal Society and Freemason. Presley, who's the English chemist and philosopher and theologian. And the reason why these names are singled out is because these names are the foundations to all of the learning institutions that came in the future. AI was just scraping all of it. Like, it's these guys. I was like, AI, just don't tell on them like that. Okay, tell me more. It's them. Because you just got to know how to prompt now. Now I just prompt like, tell me exactly this. And then you see it has a few more. Corduroy, philosopher, mathematician, and political, right? So you always see that connection between philosophy, math, science, and politics. And they, of course, wrote the encyclopedia. Okay, now let's go to the site real quick. Let's just see it as it is, because they are telling the truth. But now they're hoping everybody just wants to join and will never get in, right? This is where we're at right now. It's sickening. It's disgusting, right? You see the Cardi, Playboy, and then the fake Kanye, Christ, and then folks just there like, yeah, it's just it's so whack, right? And they're just encouraging everybody to, yeah, you want to be a part of this. You know, you want to be a part of Warhol. You want to be a part of this merch. And it's fash, and you want to be a part of all this, right? And because we the Illuminati, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, serious? Do you really think that who and what we're talking about will even allow you around? Let's go into who we're talking about. This is the Royal Society of London. This is the ancient and the accepted royal ark of Freemasonry. And just skimming over this, you see, okay, this is the founders of the Royal Society. You see the crest, okay? This is the entrance to the Royal Society, right? You have John Evelyn here, who was the founder of the Royal Society. And then as you skim through it, you learn that they were the Invisible College. So they're very blunt, because we know the Invisible College, as it's quoted in the text, is the Illuminati. It's called the Invisible College because you will be recruited without you even knowing you're being recruited. Like, there will be something that starts speaking to your mind about knowledge. That was the original Invisible College. It was Gnosticism, right? But then they take the words and patent the words. They take the words and they, trademark the words. They get the PR on the words, because the words will be used in what? The future. And what do they know? The future. How? Because that's what learning to build does. But this learning how to build does it on an entirely different level. And we'll get to that in just a moment, because it involves actually getting out of the body and realizing that there is an out of the body. And this diagram that you're seeing here is like the ones that we were looking at earlier, but it's for a different group. You get where I'm coming from? But the blueprint needs to be present, because the blueprint itself has the power. The blueprint itself in contemplation, that's what I'm saying, contemplation of the pyramid, in contemplation of the temples of Angkor Wat, one can reach enlightenment. But there needs to be a legend. A legend is on a map and it shows you this is what these symbols mean. And how you understand it is a legend is like a legacy. It's like what will live on forever, right? So there's a legend or a lore here. Let's go back a little bit. So just to understand, they're not playing with you and explaining to you that everything was developed by these societies. And these societies wrote all of the books about specifically first building and mathematics. And that knowledge of building and mathematics, as they call it, Solomon's house, is about the construction of the body on the electromagnetic spectrum and the other entities that exist within those planes, and also our double, meaning how to actually even manipulate our other bodies on other planes. So this is all known. But then, let me just put it in real quick. Once it's known, everybody keeps silent about it. Let me show you. One of the books that will show, it won't tell you the secret. It will just tell you that that the churches contain, or the temples contain, the secrets. Give me 1 second here. And this is Los Cathedrals, or Les Cathedrals, right? This was the French book. It just means the cathedrals. And it's actually on archive.org. Anybody can find it. And what it is, it's a book about the geometry within the temples. And it shows that, hey, man, something is going on with these temples, especially these cathedrals. And this knowledge that's encoded within these cathedrals is actually the key to the Philosopher's Stone. And we're going to read this just from the end of Les Cathedrals, which is the sign out of the author. And it says, by constant exercise of the faculties of observation and reasoning, and by meditation, the novice will climb the steps leading to knowledge. A simple imitation of natural processes, skill combined with ingenuity, the insight born of long experience will secure for him the power. Having obtained that, he will still have need of patience. That means just because you get power, don't think you've actually got it all. Because you will have to have a constancy and unshakable will to not get bent into another hijack or religion or offer or 1 million subscriber bullshit chain of followers or whatever to take you off of what still needs to happen. You must be brave and resolute, and then he will be enabled by the certainty and confidence born of a strong faith to dare. Okay, so we still ain't even done yet. Finally, when success has crowned so many years of labor, this is labor within oneself. This is the great work. This is the great arcana. It is a reference to Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple is the body. It's how to perform the alchemical procedure on yourself. Then what? When his desires have been accomplished, the wise man, despising the vanities of the world, will draw near to the humble, the disinherited, to all those who work and suffer and struggle and weep here below. As an anonymous and dumb disciple of eternal nature, an apostle of the eternal charity, which is to basically tend the garden, to be the guardian over your beloved, he will remain faithful to his vow of silence in science and in goodness. The adept must evermore keep silent. Now, that last rule was the addition of the Enlightenment era. The Enlightenment, or the Age of Enlightenment, decided to take the knowledge and take the wisdom and keep silent about all of what they discovered. It has to do with the vacuum chamber, like how things behave when there's no oxygen present, when you take it down atmospheres. It has to do with extracting essence from nature, meaning what you would call distillation. This is what the Olympics are about. You can literally extract the soul or essence of a plant. You can also come to the awareness of the sizes of the organs within the body and how the sizes of the organs are specific, and you design your alembics and your vessels and your chambers and your vacuums in the same ratios in order to bring life in abundance into everything, every application. This is like the Philosopher's Stone for real. This is the Saint Germain stuff. But what it mainly has to do with is getting through the bridge. So we're going to elaborate on this a little bit further, because one can never traverse the bridge in division. And this is why, for sure, the society keeps up the division. They love everybody to be in the division. And the religions perpetuate the division because there's always an antithesis in every single religion. There's someone or something to hate. And it imbreeds the person with hatred towards something that they can't see. And that works perfect for how the electromagnetic spectrum works, because most things are not visible. And in that, they fall into error. And when you break the bridge, which just means that you sever the line of communication, you are no longer basically harmonic. So the who's who, as we spoke of earlier, their creations, if you may, or plagiarizations for lack of better terms, since we know the foundations to this knowledge since 1660, Christopher Wren, Robert Murray, and all the rest of the guys, the usual suspects we were talking about earlier, in developing not only the Royal Society, but also the encyclopedia, which then kind of laid out, oh, this is who created this. This is what this is. And then the Newtonian physics, right, which is now the space shuttles and rocket propulsion and all of that. And then calculus, which is another level of math. Most of y'all didn't make it to calculus after algebra, right? And then the United States of America itself, because that was another projection in, Washington, Benjamin Franklin, everyone being a Freemason. Then the metric system, right? This is the units of measurements that people are using to scale and to understand how to measure things. This is the modern chemistry. This is then for them the discovery of all of these elements and gases, including oxygen. That had to be a big one. Like, we breathe it, but imagine somebody figured out how to put it in a tank and that it actually even existed, and what even calibration or formula of oxygen that we need, right? We need oxygen mixed with nitrogen, right? So we know, hey, this is how we could go subterranean and still exist inside the physical body by capturing this gas, this entity, and breathing this entity to keep us alive. So you see how, like, before for the ancients, everything had a life to it. It was an energy, it was a spirit. You see what I mean? So they became familiar with it in that way. In modern times, like I said, when I'm saying, hey, we can trap this gas into a jar and then keep breathing on it when we're in an area without no oxygen, and it will keep us alive. That was similar to saying, like, that you had an entity that you could use that was in this bottle, and he would keep you alive even deep underwater. You see what I mean? But it did go further, though. I'm not just trying to draw parodies here, because everything that I would be connecting to these minuscule pea brains would still be stepped down so far that it would just be bringing it into its physical applications. I can tell you the sheer ability for us to be here in this already tells you the level of intelligence of the design. So this wasn't something stupid creating something smart. It's not possible. It was more of vice versa. something so vast, something so intelligent. The only way that it could really understand itself was to start breaking itself apart. Like you would take a very complex thing and start trying to take it piece by piece until you comprehend it. And that's what we're doing now. So this procedure and this process is known. What did they know? Again, this is what your ancestors knew. The golden ratio. Mathematically, the golden ratio is an irrational number approximated at 1.618. It is defined as the ratio where the whole is the larger part as the larger part is the smaller part. Huh? There are people that say that stuff and it'd be like, okay, I get it. Let's go. Yeah, golden ratio. I got it. And we know most people didn't get it. What are they saying? Simply, as above, so below. As it's saying, it is defined as a ratio where the whole, meaning the whole thing to the larger part let's read it again. It is defined as a ratio where the whole is to the larger part as the larger part is to the smaller part. So this is the awareness of a microcosm and a macrocosm being identical. Let's finish reading it. The golden ratio is found in various aspects of nature, such as the spiral arrangement of leaves and the proportions of the human body. This distance here is the same distance as your foot. Put your foot down there. So if you ever want to know how big a person's foot is, you just measure this area right here. So this kind of knowledge, this is what the Kabbalah is, because you can figure out what the rest of the proportions of everything else, how tall they were, just by one little piece of the bone, okay? This is what we're talking about. That's what the golden ratio ends up allowing you to do and more. We also have the Vesica Pisces, okay? This is the shape that, and I don't even have the shapes because we talk about them so much. Everybody can even visualize them, and we know them, we see them all the time, but let's just break them down for what they really are and what it would do, okay? So we have this shape is formed by the two intersections of two equal sized circles where the center of each circle lies on the circumference of the other. Okay, so that's this, right? The ratio of the Vesica Pisces is the width to its width is the square root of 3, approximately 1.73200508. Okay, I sound smart, but I don't know what that means. Let's keep going. In the Masonic ritual, the Vesica Pisces represents the intersection of the material worlds and the spiritual worlds, as well as the principles of duality and unity. Ah, okay. The sacred cut. That's what it's actually called. At that 1.73, there is an opening. This is what I'm showing here. There is an opening in the realm, and every time mathematically you know where that is, you will find the intersection between the physical and the spiritual reality, the portal. So knowing the sacred cut allows you to know, so where's the gate between physical and non-physical at, so I can promptly disappear? You see what I mean? That's what they knew. They knew that there was, because remember at that point, what's there? Why is it so important to know that? Because that's the door. That's where the golden door opens. That's where this panacea is. That's where this 0 point is, if you may. This intersecting between the realms. The pentagram, right? This is just, okay, so what is in these societies? What do they know? What is their top things that they understand from a geometric level to be the maxims? And what are they? This is that list. This is the pentagram. The pentagram's a 5-pointed star. It's a polygon. When drawn with the single continuous line, it forms a pentagon in the center. Okay, I get it. What did I get? Okay, let's try again. The ratio of the length of the pentagram side to the length of the inner pentagon side is equal to the golden ratio. Oh, okay, the golden ratio again. I remember that. Okay, hit me with that one more time. In the Masonic symbolism, the pentagram represents the 5 elements, the 5 senses, the 5 virtues, the masonry, the brotherhood. Okay, all right. That's kind of the hijack. What are we talking about? This proves that man is the macrocosm and the microcosm. Basically, the pentagram, because it encodes the golden ratio, and because the pentagram can be connected to phi, and that's of course the human body, that basically the human body, oh my goodness, the human body is encoding, wait a minute, this literally proves, and that's what I was saying earlier, not meaning to have the aha moment on you again, but it proves that this wavelength that we're in, the visible microcosmic wavelength, is formed based on emotions. These emotions specifically, and I copied them earlier, were, and let me just read them off the list, because that's what I'm saying. So if you think about what makes us human, it's our emotions. When you really get down to the nitty gritty of what makes us tick, what is so different from us, even than all the other beings. Very sudden, like I see animals fight, but I don't really see a lot of the animals laugh and crack jokes, play jokes on each other. You see what I mean? So there's a sensory set that is emotional that we have that other things simply don't have, and that makes up the reality for us. Okay, so we're going to continue here. All right, yeah, let me just continue, okay, because I got so many notes. My notes is like an infinite scroll. I'm just like, all right, just forget it. All right, so you get it. The emotional body is the reality, but let's keep going. We talked about it earlier. We talked about the square and the compass, right? And then everything that rolls into that. So if we take these symbols, the golden mean, the golden ratio, the Vesica Pisces, the pentagram, and the square and the compass, and we bring them into exactly what they mean, then we come into realizing that, wait a minute, the secrets and the mysteries to the entire matrix had already been cracked. Not only through mathematics, not only through music, not only through electronics, but the main big lift that didn't happen, even though we created all these external advanced technologies, is the ability for the human to benefit from this, for us not to die. Because see, this is what this ultimately reveals. And this is where my fun, some will call it work, will continue. Is that what this proves is there's a sweet spot to reality where time doesn't have much of any effect. And this is why, it was quoted that some of these beings would say that they're outside of time, because they actually are. They're out of these wavelengths, or in these higher wavelengths that make time really irrelevant. And that in that way, they stayed in almost a perpetual perfect state. And where we are is we're moving, we're in motion in time. And this is why we see our ancient temples as crumbled and eroded and basically not in use. But that's not where they really are. These temples sit in a space that they are in their perpetual state of when they were originally built, because that's what they are. And where we're at, and let me I only can explain this through the obelisk. So how do you move beings from time or through time? Like, how would you put beings in time and then you're like outside of time in that way? I can only reveal that through the symbol of the obelisk. First, let me show you this image. And it was one of the images prepared for tonight, but somehow it did not get uploaded. Let me go ahead and get it in. And this is to let you understand that a stone mason, because remember that the Temple of Solomon was built by demons. Okay, this is what they say, right? But this is cryptic. This explains, like I said, the infrared relationship between what is going on inside of the geometry, the body, and the temples and the structures that are being built, and what happens to a person when they stand in these places, and how these places can be reconfigured. Let me throw this up on the screen. So this is what you need to understand about the guilds of the builders, right? So here was one simple chart, okay? it shows all of the principal high buildings. This is what they used to call the high places, right? They built their temples in the high places, right? But these high place temples are configured specifically on a certain geometry, okay? And this geometry not only encodes the secret of how to basically how to create the door, how to find the door within yourself, but many of these physical structures have doors in them, meaning that they have places inside of them that, you know how I'll be showing you on a movie, but he walked through the door and there was no door there. And they're like, what's going on? And then it comes to another door and then now he's in another reality. How this is all possible. And again, it's also to pay attention, because you got to pay attention. Sometimes, even if you don't feel like necessarily the smartest person, you can measure everything else based on your ignorance. When you would try to construct something like these arcs, yourself personally, you would fall into utter ruin as far as your attitude and your being mad at yourself, because it would be virtually impossible for you to understand how to do this unless you had some real skill. This is even why they don't build like this today. Nobody is trying to throw these certain degree arcs that all got to be standing on themselves. And, you know, there's a sound thing also going on in all these temples, right? And this is, again, you could check out the work Let's Cathedrals for more than that. But what I'm bringing light to right now is this. And why outside of all of these neo-structures, neo-modern, or we could say old world still, but neo-modern structures, because they are not the same as the megalithic temples, but they often contain always obelisks, right? Like even the Washington Monument, they all have the obelisk out there. So what is an obelisk? Let me show you. What is encoded in the obelisk? The obelisk. They're tall, four-sided, narrow, tapering monuments that end in a pyramid-like shape at the top. They're known to incorporate several geometric and mathematical principles in their design. Check. 1, the obelisk is a monolithic four-sided pillar that tapers gradually from its base to its top, ending in a pyramidion, a small pyramid at the top of the apex. The four sides of the obelisk are typically trapezoidal in shape. Got it. The proportions. The obelisks are often designed with specific proportions. The height of the obelisk is usually about 10 times the width at its base. Okay? And I'm going to stop here just so you understand. There's an encoding happening here for a reason. And that reason may not be as obvious, but it is encoded within its general use as a sundial, okay? And it's because it was known in order to create a space and a time, you needed something that could record both of those. So it's like, if we land, if we're going to create time and space, as something physical would understand time and space, we only need to bring something in that records time and space through its principles. So it's like the sheer presence of certain temples give you time and space because they're already marking time and space. It's the thing that we discovered with even the popes when they wanted to take claim over lands, including the air. They created things that can mark out the space and the time in those domains. So we even got it down to, if you wanted to like basically create your own domain in reality, you only needed to look no further than a 3D printed sundial technically on your own property, and for it to record the space and the time once you marked the corners of the property, the north, the east, the south, the west of the property, and then the sundial is placed. Because what is this doing? Okay, what it's doing is it's now equating the 10 base time unit, which is the cubit. So basically, The same reason why it's $5, $10, $15, $20, and generally all the denominations in the reality are by 10 in that base 10. This proportion gives the obelisk its characteristics of the slender and tall appearance, which is actually how humans are. They're the slender and the tall ones. They have the golden ratio. Some obelisks are designed to incorporate the golden ratio, approximately 1.618 in their proportions. This means that the ratio of the height of the obelisk is to the width of the base, close to the gold. The base is close to the golden ratio. So that pyramidion on the top, as it says here, the pyramidion on the top of the obelisk is a small pyramid that caps the monument, but the angles and the proportions of the pyramidion are designed to match the overall proportions of the obelisk, just like the human body. So all of the power that the obelisk can pull from its base, it puts into the pyramidion in its top, that top becoming a very concentrated point, an opening, a portal. It's like an electrostatic portal, because the obelisk is simply placed on a ley line. As we've discovered that the skin, and we got to put this into the build too, because, you know, all of this was kind of some of this was a collective of previous builds just over the last 2 weeks, but it must be imperative for everybody to understand that, okay, if the human body is the earth, microcosm, macrocosm, the skin is the surface of the earth. Okay, so let's pull all the skin off of a human body and then wrap it around the earth. Okay, what we would get then is the awareness that, one, there are latitudinal and longitudinal lines running across the body. We call those the meridians, right? And then that there's specific points on the body that are nodes, portals, if you may, to specific areas of the regions of the body. Earth has those too. This means Earth has real gateways, you know, whether it's the Temple of Uluru and all the other chakra points to Mount Shasta. If that's correct, then that's correct. But that's where the knowledge comes from, that we have these openings, so does Earth. So you could find them. There's every single orifice that you have in your body, there's a part on Earth that corresponds to that. Then it also laid out that then the body, again, having latitudinal and longitudinal lines, that those are really ley lines. And that ley lines have up shoots and down shoots, meaning an area where stuff is blowing out. So if you were there, you would be getting filled with whatever kind of energy is present in that sector. Just like inside of your body, the spleen doesn't do the same thing as the liver does. The brain synthesizes, certain parts of the brain synthesizes certain liquids and fuels. So all these things do stuff different. So when you went to that specific place on the planet or on your body, that element would be emitting from that area. Okay, so you had these latitudinal, longitudinal, or ley lines, and that these ley lines had upshoots and downshoots, and that there was horizontal and vertical crossings on the vector. So when a line goes horizontal and then vertical and they connect, and that cross point or that vector is the generation of life, i.e. a portal. So wherever two opposing forces, which is what the whole thing about the Mount of Harmon was about, and why many of these entities were opposites from each other. It was to create the same thing that you see on a piano, where there are two different keys that are opposite from each other on the piano. But the pianist, the orchestrator, knows how to make all these keys blend together so that it actually makes really great sounds and tones. So frequencies that will otherwise clash, if not played properly by a skilled orator, or whatever you want to give them the term of, because that's really more of like what a magus or a magician or anybody is that they know how to blend the conflictive components to working together to actually creating something beautiful. You get it? So every time someone's always like talking about what the bad one is, it just means that they don't really understand how that gets mixed into the good one and how it actually starts creating a balance and a harmonic tone. You see what I mean? And then that the skills truly that you're looking to inherit here while in this space, in this time, is the ability to do just that internally. And that it doesn't matter if everything else around you is not doing it or is doing it. You would still need to figure out how to do it yourself. But if the reality is constantly throwing you into all this diversity and can't really connect all this stuff and show you how it all really harmonizes together and takes you through even the story of when someone distorted, hijacked it, and then tried to use it for their own means, and then it loses its meaning, just as we know that the symbols and the language are our guideposts. They are the true legends of the reality. And if we don't have them, then we would be lost. So when someone confuses the symbolism and misconstrues the symbolism, thus we become confused and conscrewed too. Just as I was showing tonight on this chart, you have this much of the experience you've been through so far, acting like a know-it-all. Do you know, just in proportion, if that much is there, that means pretty much everything you know is not factual in that way. You only can gravitate to the most hard-coded morsels of truth. And that's why these men and women look towards this geometry in nature, because they didn't need to just know the minuscule aspects of things first. That was like a needle in a haystack. It was, let's find the core principles that operate reality. And to that extent, they have become controllers of their framework. And the interesting part about this is that while many may revel against it, they sometimes don't realize in that sheer action how they are becoming a part of it. To truly create something new, you must do something different. You must think different. You must move differently.